You know, a real chance to get into the semi-final.
On to skiing now. Norway have continued their incredible domination of the men's Super G event. Kjetil Jansrud won gold to add to his earlier bronze medal in the downhill, making up for the disappointment of finishing fourth in the Super combined. His win means Norway have won the last 4 Olympic men's Super Gs. American Andrew Wybreck won silver, with his teammates Bode Miller sharing bronze with Canada's Jan Hudek. The 36-year-old Miller is the oldest alpine skier to win an Olympic medal, his 6th in all. That's all your sport for now. I shall have more for you in the next hour.
Richard, thanks very much. Now then, well, the weather is, in most places anyway, a little calmer and it's quite sunny today. But what about the prospects for the next few days? Well, let's cross our newsroom here and find Chris Fawkes. Chris, good morning.
Hi, Nick. Good morning. Yes, things are looking pretty good for today, actually. It makes a nice change to have that sun in the sky. We've not seen that really much over the last couple of months. And a dry day forecast today, thanks to a little ridge of high pressure. The only bad news is it's only a one-day ridge of high pressure, so we'll be back to the rain for tomorrow. So enjoy the sunshine whilst it lasts, really. There are a few isolated showers for the northwest of Scotland, and it will cloud over in Northern Ireland later in the day ahead of the next weather system coming off the Atlantic. But for most of the country, for most of the day, it's dry, it's settled, it's sunny. Enjoy it. Temperatures up to 10 degrees. Overnight tonight, we'll start to see the cloud and the rain beginning to move in from the west, so turning damp for Northern Ireland. We could well see a few centimetres of snow across the higher ground, above 300 metres or so in Scotland, particularly working into Stirlingshire. And it could be a little bit icy here as well, as we have a frost developing, but the milder air working in from the south and west with that cloud and that rain. On into Monday's forecast, it looks pretty wet across western areas. Could see around 40 millimetres of rain across parts of Dartmoor, for example, and some snowy weather for Scotland. But across the eastern areas of England, the rain isn't going to amount to too much, so that's good news, I suppose. That's it for now.
When it comes to deciding Scotland's future, what matters most to people?
The issue of stability is extremely important.
When it comes down to the currency you've got in your pocket, this does matter to people.
Probably some of them are beginning to panic that how on earth am I going to make up my mind?
Counting down the results of our exclusive poll. Find out how the people of Scotland rank their top issues.
People are so hungry for information. This is about facts.
Scotland's top 10 battlegrounds. Today at 2:30 on BBC News.
This is BBC News with me, Nicholas Owen. The time is just come out to 31 minutes past 11. Let's take a look at the headlines. Parts of England and Wales are in danger of further flooding in spite of a let-up in the long spell of wet weather. The volume of rain over recent weeks means groundwater levels will keep rising. Around 15,000 homes are still without electricity. The Energy Networks Association says almost 1 million homes and businesses lost power for a time during the past few days. The former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Alistair Darling, says Scotland's First Minister Alex Salmond is a man without a plan after the President of the European Commission said it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for an independent Scotland to join the European Union. The ousted Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi is appearing in court to face new charges of espionage and conspiring to commit acts of terror. The terrorism threat to the UK posed by individuals who've trained and fought in Syria is a big problem for the security services and the police, the immigration minister says. It's the biggest night in the British film calendar, with the BAFTA Awards ceremony at the Royal Opera House in London later on. 12 Years a Slave is the favourite to win Best Film, but it's the space movie Gravity which has the most nominations. Now, here on BBC News, it's time for Click.
When the boss told me he accidentally put my expenses in his recycle bin, I did think he meant the one on his desktop.
This week's Click is a load of rubbish, but one well worth watching. We'll find out what happens to our tech when we throw it away, and how new laws might prevent it ending up in the wrong hands. And what if your device is broken and battered, but not dead? It is possible to fix it, and we'll show you how. We'll also clear up after ourselves by putting the latest robot vacuum cleaners to the test. All that, plus the latest tech news, the most outrageous piece of wearable tech I think I've ever seen, and a way to find out what's being said about you. Yes, you. Online in Webscape.
Welcome to Click. I'm Spencer Kelly. You know, a lot of the time on this programme we talk about bright, shiny, new, exciting gadgets. But for every new piece of technology there is, have you ever wondered what happens to the old, obsolete and broken down versions? Well, a lot of them will end up in places like this, an e-waste recycling centre in Newport, South Wales. And when I say a lot of it, I mean an awful lot.
Here at Sims Recycling Solutions, a whole host of different tools and methods like electromagnets, water separation and good old-fashioned humans are used to separate and salvage different metals and hazardous materials. The rest is then recycled.
It can deal with up to 75,000 tonnes of e-waste every year.
And that's a significant chunk of the 1.3 million tonnes produced every year in the UK. That's 21 kilograms per person. And guess what? That number is rising.
In 2012, the planet generated nearly 49 million tonnes of e-waste. And by 2017, that figure is expected to rise to around 65 million tonnes per year. So e-waste is clearly a growing problem. But new EU laws introduced on the 14th of February now force countries to recycle at least 45% of their e-waste and make it more difficult to export it illegally to the developing world. At the moment, a significant amount of this stuff ends up in Southeast Asia and West Africa to be picked apart by workers, often children, in really dangerous conditions. David Reed picks up the trail of this illegal e-waste in Ghana.
Recycling West Africa style. Consumer electronics smashed, sorted and the valuable metals extracted. This is Agbogbloshie, Accra, where technology goes to die. Workers here are smelting, feeding fires with TV casings and fridge interiors, a heat fierce enough to burn the insulation off electrical cables.
So what are you looking for when you're doing this?
When I'm doing this, I'm looking for copper.
A fingertip search through the ashes gleans scraps of metal that are then sold on. Take-home pay between 5 and 7 euros. The men and boys working here, and they range between 13 and 35 years old. They're not from Accra, they come from the north of the country, and they came here on a sort of gold rush, promised riches from waste. But the riches turned out to be a pittance, and the gold turned out to be lead, cadmium, and other heavy metals lodged in their bodies and slowly poisoning them.
We have problems because if you didn't bath, or maybe if you bath finished, it will just be paining your body unless you get some medicine.
Hanan is just 17 years old, taking medicine to work in an environment so toxic that even some of the boys here refuse to touch the river running through the site.
And you could see the smoke also. The smoke is also traveling. At any place that it deposits these heavy metals or the people there can be contaminated. The soil itself, you could see is hugely contaminated just by your sight.
Time to leave Agbogbloshie and head with Vincent to Ghana's Atomic Energy Commission. The lab has performed a battery of tests on soil from the site. They found cadmium 30 times over acceptable levels. It can cause cancer, kidney failure, bone disease. Levels of lead, which attacks the nervous system, topped 100 times the recommended maximum dose. You wouldn't live here?
I would not advise anybody to live there. Meanwhile, this place has been classified as one of the most pollutant or contaminated sites in the world.
The processing at Agbogbloshie is fed by the illegal traffic of e-waste into Ghana. Today, used TVs from Australia and Spain are being loaded onto waiting trucks. There's nothing wrong with importing used tech if it works. If it doesn't, it's hazardous e-waste, and it shouldn't be here. So how many of these TVs actually work?
And they all work?
Yeah,
they all function?
Yeah, 99% are working.
100%?
Yeah, but 99.
99%? How big is 1%?
How big is 1%? Very, very small.
Ghana is working on legislation to prevent illegal e-waste imports, but it's taking time as legislators don't want to curb the legitimate trade in used tech.
We do have some of the equipment that functions when it is imported into the country. So what the drafters are seeking to do is to ensure that they don't end up preventing the valuable trade in used electric and electronic equipment.
In the meantime, young men and boys will continue to stoke the fires at Agbogbloshie and pay a heavy price with their health for a handful of change.
David Reed in Ghana. Now, one of the obstacles to stemming this tide of e-waste is us. Consumers are always demanding sleeker and smaller bits of kit, and then this happens.
Whether it's droppage, knockage, or any other kind of impact, phone and tablet screens can break quite spectacularly. We asked you to send us your shots of your damaged stuff, and thank you very much for these. There are some very sorry sights here.
See, as it happens, LJ Rich recently managed to break the screen of her iPad 2. And being LJ, she didn't throw it away, she didn't get it fixed by a pro, no, she decided to fix it herself.
It's the worst feeling in the world. As well as the inconvenience, Apple told me this would cost me £200 to sort out. That's loads. Time to call on my old friends, the Restart Project, to see if I could do it myself. These fixers hold events to help people do exactly that. Since we met last year, the movement's expanded to over 40 countries. So I settled in at an event in London with my much cheaper replacement screen.
Clearly, I'm not going into this completely dry. I've done a lot of research online, watched tutorial videos, and read through how to do it. So the next thing is going from theory to practice.
Before we continue, some warnings. If you think you're covered by a warranty, you'll probably want to take your broken gadgets back to where you bought them. And there's always the potential for electric shocks and broken glass. But my iPad is ancient. I've done my prep, and one of the restarters is keeping an eye on me.
It has to be away from you. And
Yep.
also,
Yeah.
So it doesn't punch your wrist or anything like that.
I used tape to collect broken glass fragments and a chopping board to protect the table from the heat gun. The heat gun softens the adhesive, which sticks the device together. Once the glue was softened, I used plastic and metal implements called spudgers to prise open my prized gadget.
Basically, the idea is blast it with a lot more heat than I first thought. A lot more. Then, get in there and lever.
It's a combination of brute force and delicate touch. I've drawn a crowd because my repair is so complex. Plus, who wouldn't want to see the inside of an iPad?
Oh, I've done it, I've done it, I've done it! Wow! Oh, look!
Stuff is getting more difficult to open, and we're seeing that at the events that we're hosting. People always beat up on Apple, but the point is everything is becoming sleeker, smaller, more sealed together, more difficult to open.
After removing the glass, I undid 4 little screws and gently lifted the screen to reach the touchscreen connector behind it. I pulled out data cables and prepared to do it all again, but this time backwards. And at the end of the night, my iPad worked. Almost. I'd severed the GPS antenna when I removed the glass cover. It really is that easy to bodge your own repair. Oh well, back to the internet for what looks like an even more complex fix.
The instructions you find online are great, but there are also, those little tricks that you need to know to get it right. If anyone is thinking about repairing the device, have a look online and make sure you're confident with the instructions you've found.
That's Alex, a professional repairer who was very impressed with my efforts at the party. He had a spare GPS antenna lying around, so we met again at the next restart event to continue the mission. This time I borrowed Alex's professional tools. My internet ones were just not precise enough for the fix. I had to go right down to the logic board, removing the camera assembly, unpeeling tiny bits of tape and unscrewing tiny screws. Then, after hours of open logic board surgery, I was finally ready to swipe. Could it be?
Oh my gosh, it says 3G and searching on it.
I had to be prepared to break my kit irreparably in order to understand it. Because sometimes it's not the winning, it's the taking apart that counts.
That's one iPad at least saved from the conveyor belt of doom. What even is that? No idea. LJ Rich there with some truly heroic repair work, and just to remind you not to try that sort of thing at home unsupervised. Okay, next up, it's a look at this week's tech news. Oh, a USB cable.
The start of ugly things to come. That's the warning from security company Cloudflare after an enormous cyber attack targeted one of its clients. Hackers used an exploit involving the Network Time Protocol. That's the system used to synchronize computer clocks. The attack flooded servers with huge amounts of data. The technique could potentially be used to force web services offline. It's been a bad week for Bitcoin as one of the world's largest Bitcoin exchanges, Bitstamp, halted withdrawals after coming under a denial of service cyber attack. The Slovenia-based firm said the culprits had exploited a bug in the virtual currency's underlying software. Tokyo's Mt. Gox exchange had earlier also suspended withdrawals, leading to a sharp fall in Bitcoin's value. Dutch and German police forces have arrested 5 people in a crackdown on darknet marketplace Utopia. The underground website had allowed a criminal trade of illegal drugs and weapons. Police seized around £363,000 worth of bitcoins from the bust. Utopia had only launched 9 days previously. And finally, as you may have heard, after 50 million downloads, it's so long to Flappy Bird. The infuriatingly addictive mobile game is no more after its developer decided to pull the plug when media interest became too much. For those in need of an avian fix, dozens of web-based clones have now sprung up. And if you find yourself indifferent to this news, perhaps this poignant YouTube requiem will persuade you otherwise. Now let's move away from the rubbish for a second and look at something far more stylish. Just in time for London Fashion Week this weekend comes a skirt made of phones. Yes, as we wait for that future where your clothes are smart, this knee-length number is made of 80 Nokia smartphones running a special app that simulates a portion of a virtual fabric on each screen. As the model walks and turns, the handsets detect the movement and the design appears to move and shimmer like real material. The collaborative project between Nokia, who supplied the phones, fashion designer Fyodor Golan and London design house Kin has taken 3 months of design, testing and calibrating. Even the clips holding each phone to the wire frame were 3D printed to the exact measurement and orientation required. You know, I was up for wearing it myself, but sadly, it's not made for someone of my proportions.
I'm all for minimising waste, but this is ridiculous.
And this is how the finished product went down on the catwalk. Unfortunately, the software didn't go down.
As you can see, I myself am a dedicated follower of fashion. What do you mean rubbish? Anyway, not all technology is destined for a place like this. In fact, some is designed to clean your house while you lead your own busy life.
Last week, Sir James Dyson, best known for his range of bagless vacuum cleaners, invested £5 million in the development of a new generation of intelligent household robots. Now, while the results of that may be some way off, we sent Lara Lewington to the boardroom to pitch something that could clean up sugar.
They come from the world's biggest electronics companies.
This is an unbelievable opportunity. This process is not about a job, it's about making sure my house is spotless.
At stake, a chance to change the way we clean and become the vacuum apprentice.
In most areas of our lives, technology's changed the way that we do things over the years. But when it comes to cleaning, it's remained a pretty manual process.
Yet the last 12 months has seen the release of several updated and more versatile robotic vacuum cleaners. These devices use onboard cameras to photograph and map your home, even containing sensors to stop them falling downstairs or repeatedly hitting the cat. Plus, they have a choice of cleaning options, with some allowing you to select areas to be avoided.
It's all very well that these devices look more exciting than your average cleaning equipment, but the question is, how well do they actually do the job?
So we devised a little experiment, which may not be the most scientific, but should give us a little indication of whether these bots are up to the challenge. Clean floor? Meet some talcum powder. On cleaning the talc, my traditional vacuum, which cost around a third of the price, did pretty well, only leaving a slight residue. So, here goes. Probably the most high profile of our apprentices is the Roomba, the self-styled original bot on the block. It works similarly to many of its young pretenders, such as the Samsung Navibot, also boasting a timer function, handy for when you want to program a clean while you're at work. LG is fighting its corners hard with the squarer-designed HomeBot with corner-busting brushes to boot. All the machines we tested proved fairly good on superficial crumbs, but weren't big on cleaning up the talc. And whilst they may have struggled on our rug, they had greater success on lower pile carpet. Which leaves us with a bit of a grubby room to clean. Luckily, another robot is on hand to help. The iRobot Brava sweeps and mops. Handy in this instance, and I'm relieved to say the tiles are regaining their usual appearance. But the floor isn't the only place that these machines are trying to clean up.
Wouldn't it be nice if you could clean the windows without working up a sweat?
Well, this hopes to be the answer, the WinBot. It certainly washes the windows nicely and works on any thickness of glass, but the permanent power cord attached does make it feel a bit low tech. And whilst the future may hold the promise of great things, these candidates may not be ready to take over all your cleaning duties just yet.
You are fired.
Lara Lewington. And those robot vacuum cleaners needn't be concerned about turning up here. I'm sure a career in reality TV beckons. Let's face it, it will for us all eventually. Anyway, sticking with the rubbish theme, Kate Russell has a tool next to sift the online trash from your social media in Webscape.
Rabbit, 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 rabbit.
Ever Googled your own name? It can be a scary experience, especially if you're on TV. If you want to know what's being said about you online, try Mention, a free online app that lets you set up keywords or phrases to keep an eye out for all across the popular social media platforms, as well as forums, blogs, and general web pages indexed by Google.
You won't stop talking, why don't you give it a rest?
As well well as looking for mentions about you or your business, you can add key phrases you're interested in, such as developments in new technology that you heard about on Click, or perhaps when your favourite TV star, like Mr. Spencer Kelly, has had articles published on the web. This is a similar service to Google Alerts, but it gives you a lot more control and a nice interface to browse results through. There's also a handy import button to suck in your existing Google Alerts into the service with a minimum of fuss.
But you have to keep giving it that.
If all that seems a bit narcissistic to you and you just want a quick way to check whether you've said anything silly on Twitter, FireMe app offers a fun and simple service that will check back through your posts to judge how likely your comments are to get you fired.
Rabbit, bunny, jabba rabbit.
We're getting used to our phones telling us where we are, but there is a lot to be said for just getting lost sometimes if you have a moment to explore. That's the premise behind iPhone app Drift, which sets a treasure hunt style location quest that will send you wandering around on a random adventure.
Look around.
This is a great idea if you're visiting a new city on holiday or perhaps somewhere that you've just moved to. Now, obviously, make sure you know that there are no dangerous places you really shouldn't go, and remember to look up from your phone occasionally. You never know what you might stumble across. In a similar vein, and also only on iPhone, is Photo Dash. This app is a race to complete the photo challenges, either against a friend or a random opponent. It's great fun and gets the pulse racing, though the obvious caveats about sharing unmoderated photographs with strangers apply.
Einstein's intuition told him that the world should feel the same in all frames of reference moving with constant velocity.
Last week our video looked at how fast you're travelling through space and time. But is there a cosmic speed limit? Einstein's theory of relativity suggests we cannot travel faster than light. Or does it?
This is what's called the principle of relativity.
This week, thanks to Veritasium.com, we find out.
Let's use our imagination. So let's say I'm traveling at the speed of light this way. If I hold up a mirror in front of my face, will I be able to see my reflection?
Thank you, Kate. Well, I'm afraid time has flown here, what with us not being on a rocket approaching light speed and all. So Kate's links and much more technology news are all at our website, bbc.co.uk/click. And if you'd like to comment on anything you've seen today, please do. On the email, we're click@bbc.co.uk. On Twitter, we're @bbcclick, and we're also on Google Plus and Facebook too. That's it for now, though. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Hey folks, this is a quick tutorial on how to cheat and beat the very popular Flappy Bird game. So I'll start off and just pay attention because you can miss it. See right there? Hit it some more.
Hi there, here's something I've not said very often over the last 2 months. It's going to be a dry and sunny day today. We've got a ridge of high pressure across the British Isles, so get out and about, enjoy the sunshine as we go through the rest of the day today. The satellite picture tells the tale really nicely, not much cloud around at all. And if I zoom you into Scotland, actually most of what you can see here isn't cloud, it's actually snow there picked out on the Scottish mountains. Of course, we've got excellent skiing conditions in all of the Scottish ski resorts right now with huge volumes of snow up the mountains. Through the rest of the day, though, we've got plenty of sunshine for Scotland, England and Wales. Just a few isolated showers coming into the far north of Scotland. And for Northern Ireland, a change in the weather here as we go through the afternoon. It will cloud over and there'll be a few showers pushing in across southern and western counties. In the best of the sunshine, we look at temperatures climbing to 10 degrees in the capital. It's going to feel very pleasant with light winds. Now, overnight tonight, it's going to be quite cold to start off the night, particularly across eastern England into Scotland, where there'll be a frost setting in. Could be some icy stretches on roads, and then we've got this area of rain working in, turning to snow across the high ground in Scotland, particularly above around 300 metres, with some further significant accumulations of snow here over the next 24 hours or so. It turns milder across the south and west as the cloud and rain begins to pile in. Now, on into Monday, okay, there will be some damp weather around across East Anglia and South East England, but no huge rainfall totals, just spots really, so that's at least one bit of good news. A cloudy, dull and damp start to the day though, and across southwest England and Wales we could pick up around 10 to 20 millimetres of rainfall, maybe as much as 40 over some of the slopes of Dartmoor, so that's certainly not welcome. A wet start to the morning as well for Northern Ireland, and we'll start to see that rain moving into southern and western areas of Scotland, again turning to snow, particularly around parts of Stirlingshire and Argyllshire as well. And through the rest of Monday, most of us will keep the cloudy, dull and damp weather all day. The heaviest rain always around western coasts and hills. We'll probably stay dry for the north of Scotland, and it may well dry up as well for southeast England, with some bright or sunny spells developing during the afternoon. On into Tuesday's chart, this weak area of low pressure still with us, so expect a lot of cloud around, 1 or 2 showers with more persistent rain affecting northern areas of Scotland through the day. And taking a check on the weather for the week ahead, well, significantly, it's going to be much less stormy than it was last week, so we're not going to see the return of those really strong winds. However, it will often be pretty cloudy, and we are going to see further spells of rain, particularly during the second half of the week. So that's one to watch, given the flooding situation, of course, that we are suffering at the moment. That's your latest weather.
Starting your own restaurant is a life-changing decision.
It is a gamble.
You'll need nerves of steel.
And it really does put any relationship to its test.
Endless resources.
Still feels quite a long way off at the moment.
And if you're lucky, the restaurant man. Can expert Russell Norman help first-time restaurateurs realise their dreams?
Service is just as important, if not more important than food.
I've got no food.
The Restaurant Man, Wednesday at 8 on BBC Two and BBC Two HD.
This is BBC News. I'm Nicholas Owen. The headlines at midday. A brief respite in the bad weather, but warnings that further flooding will occur as water levels rise. Around 15,000 homes are still without electricity after the storms brought down power lines. Scientists say air currents that influence the weather over northern Europe and North America may well be changing. Also in the next hour, Europe weighs in over the debate about Scotland's future. The President of the European Commission says it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for an independent Scotland to join the European Union. The SNP, the Scottish National Party, says that's nonsense. Chaos at the trial of the former Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi, where his team of lawyers has walked out. And it's the BAFTAs, the biggest night in the British film calendar, where 12 Years a Slave is among the favourites to land the top honours. Good afternoon, welcome to BBC News. Just to bring you some news that we're just getting from South Africa. Rescue efforts are going on to try to reach what are described as 200 illegal miners reported trapped in an abandoned mine shaft near Johannesburg. That is just about all the information we have on it at the moment. As we get further details, of course, we'll bring them to you. 200 illegal miners trapped in an abandoned mine shaft, and rescue operation underway to try to save them. Now then, the bad weather here may have eased off a little today, but there are still warnings that the flooding in many areas is going to get worse before it gets better. Weeks of torrential rain mean that groundwater levels in many parts of the UK will continue to rise over the